This is Trend Following Radio, where great thinking comes alive. Nobel Prize winners, legendary traders, best-selling authors, and the pros that know what drive us irrational human beings. I am your host, MICHAEL Coveel. Not filtered, raw, honest. That's my passion. A huge Pixies fan. I love that song. Been listening to it forever, long before it ever hit the Fight Club soundtrack. You know, for those that don't know, the Pixies, that kind of slow, hard, up and down rhythm, you know, Kurt Cobain of Nirvana always used to say that they were his biggest influence. And I tell you, I've had a chance to meet a lot of really interesting people. For people that follow my trend following work, they know clearly all these great trend following traders that I've had a chance to learn from and pass along their insights. But I've had a chance to meet Mikhail Gorbachev. That was really cool. And when I was a kid, I don't know if I really ended up meeting her, but she was at my parents' house, was Liz Taylor. And I remember thinking to myself, man, why are all these older men in love with this woman? Because she wasn't exactly thin at the time. Anyways, that's a slight divergence. But to the Pixies song, I will have to say, one of the coolest people I've ever met is Charles Thompson, who otherwise known as Black Francis, otherwise known as Frank Black. He's a lot of different aliases, but having a chance to sit down and we actually talked about the Turtle Trader book, and this is a couple years ago, a year and a half ago or so. But I love that inspiration. Anyways, it's a slight tangent. Just figure I'd get that out of the way before I talk about what I talked about today. And I have to re-bring something up that I talked about at the beginning of a podcast interview the other day. And I was lucky enough, and it's luck, let's face it, lucky enough to get the Financial Times. And actually, I didn't do anything. This just happened unexpectedly. But the Financial Times wrote a review of my book, The Little Book of Trading. And this lady, Pauline, kind of kicked it between the you-know-what across the room. And she wasn't very fond of trend following. She wasn't very fond of the book. She wasn't very fond of me. And I didn't really offer much of a comment other than, if somebody doesn't really get this subject, what are you going to do? Beat them over the head? I mean, you can't really beat them over the head. I used to try that when I was younger. And I think all I did, I was preaching to the choir. I mean, I didn't really win new converts that way. So, but there was one thing that I saw in her piece that I did want to address, because I think that when someone uses fighting words, you got to fight. And I think it's an interesting point, too. So let me just read a quote from her article, which I wanted to address. It says, Mr. Coveil is an evangelist for the trend-following style of investment. He decries traditional investment approaches that rely on fundamental analysis and says buy and hold investing via mutual funds will never make anyone rich. Selling trend-following courses is his business, so this is no surprise. Well, let me just address that sentence by sentence. Mr. Coveil is an evangelist for the trend following style of investment. Well, that's true. I mean, I guess if I'll take that as a compliment. I'm in the middle of it. I write a lot about it, and I help to popularize it. And she goes on to further say, says, he decries traditional investment approaches that rely on fundamental analysis and says buy and hold investing via mutual funds will never make anyone rich. I think that's a true statement. I think most rational people agree with me on that now. Maybe they don't necessarily know what fundamental analysis is when they hear the term, but I think most people kind of realize right now that buy and hold exactly doesn't work unless you live forever. Some people might live forever. There's this vampire, I know vampires are pretty popular with a lot of people. So I guess maybe, I don't know, maybe Pauline's into vampires. Who knows? And she goes on to say, selling trend following courses is his business. Well, that's definitely one aspect of my business. I don't think there's any secret there. But it's the last line that kind of hits me. She says, so this is no surprise. I said to myself, and so a couple days later, I'm saying to myself, well, what the hell does that mean? This is no surprise. No surprise what? Well, I'm just going to have to take that for what it means, that somehow or another, the sheer act that I'm being compensated for providing information to people, whether it's teaching or books or something, disqualifies me. Apparently, that's what she's saying. Now, it's an interesting line of attack because she works for a major news publication. she's paid a salary. Daniel Kahneman, one of my favorite guys, wins the Nobel Prize in behavioral economics. He is a professor. I believe he's at Princeton. I believe he gets paid. I believe he teaches. I don't think anyone comes at him and says, hey, Kahneman, you get paid at Princeton. Your work sucks. So you can't believe the words. The words are secret lies. They really don't mean anything. I don't really think he fields that question. Now, I'm not comparing myself to Kahneman, not doing it. But you know what? I'm not just some rube sitting on the side corner either, okay? I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm writing about. And I challenge, if you're listening out there, to think about it for a second. If my world is somehow or another invalidated because I've elected to go ahead and provide education, provide research to people, they're basically just buying my time is what they're doing. Hey, you're starting from a standing start and you don't know anything about trend following. Well, gee, sometimes it can help a little bit to pick the brain of somebody that's walked in front of you, and maybe they can pass along some insights. And that's all this is. So if somehow or another I was really not providing real information, don't you think I'd have a far bigger group of critics to be worried about than one Financial Times reporter? Meaning, man, I've put myself square in the middle of an industry that's not short on money or power. If I wasn't speaking the truth, if I wasn't putting it out there clean as day, 100%, check the veracity, if it wasn't true, I would be drilled between the eyes and kicked upside and downside the street, left and right. I can't get too mad at Pauline, but it's kind of a cheap shot. I mean, it makes it a little bit personal. It's not fighting on the merits by any stretch of the imagination. I am not just a blogger. I'm not a guy that is afraid of a verbal jousting in person, in public. I would love nothing better. And I noticed that Pauline does speak at some events around the globe. But I would love nothing better to have a debate. I mean, I will go anywhere. I will sit down. You name the size of the audience. I always tell my friends, I am slightly warped, but I always tell people that if you gave me an audience and you said, Covel, you have 5 minutes to get in front of 60,000 people, you get no notes, and you've got to try and keep most of them there in that auditorium to listen to you talk for at least 60 minutes. I'm not being cocky, but I think I could pull it off. So, let's sit down one day, Miss Pauline. I'd love to sit down. And, but at the end of the day, and I think, and I'm going to, as I brought in with this Pixies song on this segment, I'm going to lead out with something that's a little peppier. Because at the end of the day, if you are pushing this mantra that buy and hold is good, if you're pushing this mantra that fundamentals are good, and you're picking on me for saying that this stuff is all just nonsense when clearly all factual data points that way. That's a great lyric for society today, right? This is what the state, this is what the politicians, this is what the bankers, this is what they're doing to you. They're just spinning you round and round and round. That's the whole game. Anyways, I have something I want to read here in a second, which I'm kind of calling my 25 selected trend commandments. But someone had asked me this the other day, and I wanted to kind of let people know. And 2 of these are recommendations, and I'm halfway through 2 of these and haven't started the third. But people were curious what I had on my desk that I was reading here recently. So the first thing that I have is something called Letters from a Self-Made Merchant to His Son by George Horace Lorimer. And I believe this thing is, if I'm not mistaken, this was originally composed in the 1800s. Let's see if I can find a date. Yeah, this is from the 1800s. So it's called Letters from a Self-Made Merchant to His Son, George Horace Lorimer. The one that I've not started, and I guess I should have read this a long time ago, but Marcus Aurelius Meditations. That was someone told me, Mike, why have you not read that? Please read that. And then something a little more, I think for anybody out there that is kind of a self-made entrepreneur as well, that there's this new book out, and some of it's a little whatever, but I think his big points are important. And it's a book called Platform. It's by a guy named Michael Hyatt. Michael is a kind of in a Seth Godin type mode. I think the only thing that kind of turns me off a little bit about Michael, he brings his religion out there for all to see pretty openly, but he's still widely respected as a kind of I don't want to say marketing guru or something, but it's an interesting book. So it's called Platform by Michael Hyatt. Worth checking out. Some good basic points in there. So anyways, what I wanted to read through right now is what I'm calling my 25 selected trend commandments. And as we think about the first little segment I did in this episode, where at least one potential critic was having a hard time wrapping their arms around the benefits of trend following and implying that I don't provide the secrets. And, I've seen a lot of people on my blog come back and respond, and they're like, hey, the secrets are in plain sight. And some of what I'm going to read right now, I think that this is the plain sight. So let me just start here with number one. Big money starts with trends or waves. Everyone who makes big money rides or surfs waves. And the really big money comes from the really big and unexpected waves. Number two, nurture beats nature. What constitutes a winning trader? A special gene or divine gift? Child prodigy, innate talent? Inside knowledge? MBAs? Huge starting capital? One answer, no. Number three, think like Kenny Rogers. If you must play, decide upon three things at the start: the rules of the game, the stakes, and quitting time. Quote, you've got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, and know when to run. Number four, never trust anyone. Whenever there is a market movement, Wall Street analysts always speculate why it occurred. What they say never directly translates to the bottom line of profit. Number five, market bubbles and crashes are your friend. The mythological 100-year flood happens regularly. Since 1929, there have been 18 market crashes, always rooted in irrational exuberance in one direction, then panics to get out in the other. Number six, speculation is not evil. Think about what drives a market. Millions of investors speculating to make money. That's evil? That's life. Recent college graduates, they speculate that a high-paying job awaits after graduation. That's evil. Number seven, fundamentals are religion. To paraphrase Paul Tudor Jones, the illusion has been created that there is an explanation for every market move, every tick up or down, with the primary task to find that explanation. Ozzy Osbourne also saw the insanity in fundamentals. Quote, I'm going off the rails on a crazy train. End quote. Number eight, the market is never wrong. People pine nonstop for the market to go their direction, then pray it'll come back if it doesn't. The market is never wrong. Losers average losers. Number nine, everything flows. Trend followers don't predict direction. They react to market movements and follow along without a story or conviction about why the market is moving. Number 10, adapt your trading to market movements. Markets go up, down, and sideways. They trend, they flow, they surprise, they change. Know you will adapt from the outset. Don't bother guessing how far a trend will go. You can't. Number 11, you have to bet to win. Take a big risk if you want a big reward. If you want an average reward, take an average risk. No balls, no babies. However, as market wizard Larry Hite said, quote, don't bet your deli to win a pickle, end quote. Number 12, trade everything. Follow enough markets that when one moves, you can ride it, as diversification is the only free lunch you get. Forget the market's name. They are the same if you only trade price. Number 13, process beats outcome. Do you want to be right or rich? You really have no control over the results. You have control over your action. What can you really control? How much you lose. Number 14, learn to love losses. P.T. Barnum famously said, quote, "This way to the egress," end quote. If famed trader Amos Hofstadter lost 25%, he'd exit, quote, "Never mind the cheese, let me out of the trap," end quote. Ignore losses or try to double down to recoup. Those losses will bury you. Number 15, slow your emotions down. Don't compete with the phony speed of society. Be a snake. Coil and strike when the time is right. That simple thought is the foundation of Daniel Kahneman's Nobel Prize in Behavioral Economics. Number 16, the Babe Ruth parallel. Babe Ruth struck out in bunches, but was one of baseball's greatest sluggers. His home runs nullified the strikeouts. In between trading strikeouts, don't lose too much while waiting for the next home run. That's the trick. Number 17, price is all that matters. Forget the market, stocks, bonds, gold, or corn. Your system needs to work on all of those different markets. Trend trader Ken Tropin said it, quote, "You can't have a suit so tight that if you gain 2 pounds, it won't fit," end quote. Number 18, technology is no mistress. Pablo Picasso famously said, quote, "Computers are useless. They can only give you answers," end quote. Start by answering your daily market questions in advance. Automating your answers is the easy part. Number 19, zero-sum battles are life. Someone has to lose for you to win. Forget trying to be loved. Need a friend? Get a dog. If you're going to win, someone else will lose. Does survival of the fittest make you uneasy? Stay out of the zero-sum game. Number 20, ivory towers are prisons. The efficient markets hypothesis has more in common with Scientology versus any useful trading enlightenment. The last 15 years are proof positive against efficiency dogma. Number 21, avoid benchmarks. Quote, "If you don't have an umpire, you can wait for the fat pitch." The trouble with investing for other people is that you have an umpire. It's called quarterly performance, end quote. Julian Robertson nails that. Number 22, panicky sheep take cliff dives together. The group offers safety, confirmation, and simplifies decision-making. If something goes wrong, it's far more comforting to be with others than to be alone. The old saying, "Misery loves company," rings true. Number 23, statistical thinking is paramount. During a Monday Night Football game, one of the announcers, Ron Jaworski, unintentionally put numbers and odds in perspective for making money. Quote, "Play calling is about probability, not certainty," end quote. Number 24, hero worship kills accounts. Many see market gurus as religious prophets. When TV zombies say it's time to buy Google or dump Apple, millions follow random advice blindly. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Number 25, buy and hold. Hope is dead. Buy and hold works for investors who live forever. It also works for those who believe in magical thinking and pixie dust. However, mutual funds still make a fortune selling you the dream. Like cosmetics, they both sell hope. I said at the beginning of my book, 10 Commandments, and those are really derived from an assortment of my books. But I said in the beginning of 10 Commandments, because I had to make the decision at the beginning of that book, do I, it's not going to be just 10, because you couldn't just make 10. And I was like, well, do I pick some number out of thin air? And, so I made a little disclaimer, I think at the end of the first chapter, and I said, there's not 10 in particular, and there's no set one number. So that's why I say for the beginning of this was 25 selected 10 Commandments. Now somebody can listen to those and they can say, well, you just didn't tell me anything. Really? Really? Do you really think you did not hear anything? Maybe you should listen again. But I find that the ultimate battle that exists is one of patience. Because let's face it, we're in a society right now that rewards people that follow the system. The people just follow along blindly, don't ask questions. Or if it's like junk food, if it's easily digestible, if you don't have to think. I mean, you could put every last, quote, trend following rule into some book. And I've put plenty of trend following rules in my books. But people are still going to have questions. They're still going to want to know, how does it work? How do I do it? They're going to have some question that they don't quite wrap their arms around. That's why people come to me. People come to me to ask their unique questions. That's what my firm has done with its training, is you give people, everyone's got their own unique circumstance, their own unique situation. And they got their perspective that they want to ask about. And so I think it's, that's the trick. You got to wrap your arms around that. I'm not going to lie. I have an affinity for politics, but not really because I think there's a way to win anymore. But I think it's smart to understand what's going on. And it only takes a little bit of reading to see that current economics, current political machinations across the globe right now, it's pretty crazy times. I mean, it just bailed out the entire country of Spain, and who knows what's next. But I want to I want to play a little clip. It's about 3 minutes. Nigel Farage, simpatico with my thinking, against bailouts, against crazy debts, basically is saying time to cleanse the system, time to do the right thing. Let me play this real quick. It's about 3 minutes. Worth the listen. I'll comment on the backside.
Mr. Farage.
Another one bites the dust. Country number 4, Spain, gets bailed out, and we all, of course, know that it won't be the last. Though I wondered over the weekend whether perhaps I was missing something, because when the Spanish Prime Minister, Mr. Rajoy, got up, he said that this bailout shows what a success the Eurozone has been. And I thought, well, having listened to him over the previous couple of weeks telling us there wouldn't be a bailout, I've got the feeling after all his twists and turns, he's just about the most incompetent leader in the whole of Europe. And that's saying something, because there's pretty stiff competition. Indeed, every single prediction of yours, Mr. Barroso, has been wrong. And dear old Herman Van Rompuy, well, he's done a runner, hasn't he? Because the last time he was here, he told us we'd turned the corner, that the euro crisis was over, and he hasn't bothered to come back and see us. I remember being here 10 years ago and hearing the launch of the Lisbon Agenda. We were told that with the euro by 2010 we would have full employment, and indeed that Europe would be the competitive and dynamic powerhouse of the world. By any objective criteria, the euro has failed, and in fact there is a looming impending disaster. This deal makes things worse, not better. 100 billion is put up for the Spanish banking system, and 20% of that money has to come from Italy. And under the deal, the Italians have to lend to the Spanish banks at 3%, but to get that money, they have to borrow on the markets at 7%. It's genius, isn't it? It really is brilliant. So what we're doing with this package is we're actually driving countries like Italy towards needing to be bailed out themselves. In addition to that, we put a further 10% on Spanish national debt. And I tell you, any banking analyst will tell you 100 billion doesn't solve the Spanish problem. It would need to be more like 400 billion. And with Greece teetering on the edge of euro withdrawal, the real elephant in the room is that once Greece leaves, the ECB, the European Central Bank, is bust. It's gone. It has 444 billion euros worth of exposure to the bailed out countries. And to rectify that, you'll need to have a cash call from Ireland, Spain, Portugal, Greece and Italy. You couldn't make it up, could you? It is total and utter failure. This ship, the Euro Titanic, has now hit the iceberg, and sadly there simply aren't enough lifeboats.
So when you listen to that passion and you listen to what he's describing, clearly this is a really systemic meltdown that we're seeing in Europe. And perhaps we're seeing it in other places, but it's not yet manifested itself as clearly as Europe. Won't be surprised if this happens in the States. I mean, the States are pretty crazy these days too. So what's the point? I'm offering this trend following perspective. What's the point of this passionate European leader drilling his fellow, and you got to watch the video clip, drilling his fellow Euro bureaucrats, I assume they were in Brussels, right between the eyes? How are you going to prepare for that? Let's say he's even remotely right, and clearly markets are volatile. They've been volatile since 2007. How do you prepare? Like there's no way to be at the catbird seat to know in advance what these people are going to do. Even though I agree with Nigel Farage, I don't think he's not necessarily a huge power broker. He's more a thorn in the side of some of these Eurocrats that are making crazy decisions. But what are you going to do to prepare? What's your preparation? Because you surely can't sit around and follow the daily news and make buy and sell decisions. I mean, one day everything's rosy, the next day it's not. You know, you try and make a bet, you're going to lose your shirt if you're making your bet based on how you think something might unfold. You're going to lose your shirt. There's too much volatility to make those kinds of bets. And clearly your position sizing should be smaller in volatile markets to begin with. So what do you do? I mean, this is the big question, right? How do you prepare for so much uncertainty when you can't make the calls, you can't follow the news, you can't trust anybody? This is what I find about the critics of trend following. I just don't get. It's the only freaking strategy out there that doesn't require you to have the ability to decipher Egyptian hieroglyphics to make a decision. It's the only thing that has some rational basis to it. Some only thing that allows you to kind of lower the emotions and say, my gosh, I can't control everything, but this allows me to participate and protect myself. Key, participate potentially in the profit and protect yourself on the downside. Now there's another choice. And I mentioned one of my favorite singers, bands in the beginning. And I think they have a great lyric going out that you have a choice. You can try to do something. Try to do something in the trend following headspace, the trend following mind space. You can try and go that direction. Or you can just sit there while they gouge away. And they're going to gouge away all day. They're not going to stop. They're going to keep gouging. And one day you're going to wake up and you're going to look like a freaking carcass that's been picked over by crows. Avoid that. Don't let them gouge you away. I see a time when those awake will understand how to make money in up, down, and surprise markets. Whether new trader or experienced, college student or financial advisor, protecting against a crash or just trying to make a lot of money, trend following offers everyone an answer in uncertain times. To get started immediately, send me an email, michael@covel.com. I will send you the right trend following steps to take along with my free video. But if you want to buy and hold, trust the government and trust Wall Street, this is absolutely not for you.